Two little letters. Two little letters we've heard used throughout the year: AI, artificial intelligence. It's a new tech revolution upon us. And today I want to break down some of the things that we'll want to look at as we move forward responsibly with AI. I'm your host, Marie Wiese. And for those of you who have never met me before, I'm the CEO of Marketing Copilot. I'm a Microsoft MVP in AI, and I've spent 30 years in the tech sector watching the trends come and go. I firmly believe that this latest movement in technology towards artificial intelligence is going to be the biggest breakthrough yet in tech. But let's talk about some of the elements we want to pay attention to before we let the horses fully out of the gate. I want to take you back to 1991. Maybe some of you weren't even alive yet, but in 1991, I was just starting my career and I was working for the Canadian federal government. And my boss provided me with this new tool called email. In the office now, I could send interdepartmental memos, get briefing notes, do a whole bunch of things using email. Email was a pretty cool tool back in 1991. And email, as the tech sector started to roll it out at scale for all companies around the world, was all about increasing efficiency and productivity, improving communication and collaboration, and enhancing record keeping. Does this sound familiar? Is this something tech has promised us in the past? The reality, though, of email is that people quickly got information overload. And in fact, in the beginning days of email, I think it actually decreased productivity, not enhanced it. I know it certainly did for me. It created a lot of erosion in work life balance because now people were always able to check their email. And it seemed like we were always on. I'd find myself replying to emails at 11 o'clock at night when I should have been tucked up in bed watching a good show on TV. It also spawned a whole new area of malicious activity, malware, threats, security breaches. And of course, the thing that pains me the most is people reaching out on email asking for money or spoofing, spamming, scamming people. It really did break my heart to see how email started being used for nefarious purposes. This time around, AI is promising to do the same thing that the cloud, email, mobile, all the different technology tools that we've deployed have all promised efficiency, doing more with less. But this time, I firmly believe we can do better this time around as a tech sector and as a tech industry as we roll out AI. In today's landscape, you're going to see a lot of talk from companies like Microsoft about cost savings, efficiency. And the one that really breaks my heart is doing more with less people. I don't know about you, but coming out of the COVID era where we were all on our own at home, I think having people around us is a good thing. I think human to human connectivity and interaction is what we should all be striving for. So if AI promises to remove a third of your workforce, it starts to beg the question, what does our work life look like going forward? And who's responsible for policing these activities? Is it the developer? The companies building products like OpenAI? Is it the corporations implementing it? Is it governments or elected officials? Well, I don't think it's any one person. I think it's all of us. And the reason I think it's all of us is when we move too fast for policies to catch up, or there's a lot of money on the table, we don't deploy technology responsibly. And I think this time round, we all have a role to play in doing that. Because when we don't, the weak, the underrepresented, the elderly, the most vulnerable of us will be victims of technological advances. And I think we have to pay close attention to how AI gets rolled out. I love this quote from Jerry Seinfeld. We're smart enough to invent AI, dumb enough to need it, and still so stupid we can't figure out if we did the right thing. He gave this as part of his commencement address at Duke University, talking about what the future might look like. And he was very much on the side of thinking for yourself, but interacting as a human being. Unfortunately, the genie's out of the bottle. If you're sitting watching this webinar today, there's a good chance that People are using AI right across your organization. You might not even know they are. But if you're a developer, I think you have an obligation to produce responsible AI that does not harm or mislead people. If you're a business leader, you have an obligation to bring real and useful solutions to your customers and also to be transparent about where you do and don't use AI. And if you're a marketer, as I am, you have an obligation to do the work. Avoid the shortcuts and stay true to original and useful content. Because very shortly, we're going to see a lot of noise out there generated instantly by AI. And as human beings, we have to cut some of that noise out. The four areas of responsible AI that we like to talk about are intellectual property, data security, data and algorithm bias, and brand ethics. So we're going to jump in and just show a couple of best practices for each one of the pillars. But before I do that, please take a moment and download our responsible AI guide by snapping this QR code with your cell phone. You can follow along with the pillars, see some best practices, and even hear some results that the Marketing Copilot team was able to achieve by using AI tools in a responsible way. Let's start with intellectual property and generative AI. These tools are not generating information out of thin air. They're trained on huge data lakes of data. Oftentimes, we don't even know where the data came from. And we oftentimes don't know if it's been scraped from our own websites. Say you've taken the time to spend, a lot of research and effort building a website for your business, only to find out that somebody scraped it and added it to a data lake in order for somebody else to do competitive analysis. There are billions of snippets of text, images, and questions and prompts out there. What you need to decide is what's crucial to your organization as far as data and information goes. How do you protect that? And how do you protect your intellectual property? Because the question I have as we look at where these data lakes might have generated their data is who gets the credit when something gets built? The AI end user who generated the content, the developer, the company that created the AI tool, and the humans who do the work. Who gets the credit? And who gets the royalties? We like to adhere to the 3 C's of content creation: consent, compensation, and credit. If we've borrowed something from someone that's their intellectual property, we want consent. We want to make sure they get compensated for it if we're getting compensated for it. And we want to make sure they get the credit. Without that, it's just become the wild, wild west yet again. As marketers, we like to say live by the pen and die by it. You use AI for research, brainstorming, fact finding, but leave the salient points of the content you create to human beings who've got the experience, who've got the insight, who understand the customer. Inform your clients and your employees when, where, and how generative AI is being used. We created a policy at Marketing Copilot that we've posted on our website to tell people where, when, and how we use AI. Take initiative to find original sources. When you're getting information back from an AI tool, don't just take it at its word. Figure out whether that content in there has come from somewhere else, and if so, can you validate it? And proactively look out for content that is infringing on your IP, because we all need to do better this time around. Let's talk about data security for a moment. Just because tools like Copilot from Microsoft are out there doesn't mean your business is ready for it. Jumping the gun on organizational AI implementation can result in data breaches, cyber attacks, legal issues, damaged reputation, and a loss of customer trust. I recently heard about a law firm who had decided to use an AI tool to record meetings with prospects and early stage customers so they could start to document what was going on in the legal proceedings. Sounds like a great way to use AI, but when they were using a publicly available tool that stored the information in the cloud on a common platform for all customers, that isn't a good way to protect data, and it's a huge breach in privacy if that data ever gets hacked. So these are the things that we're struggling with today. Things we can't necessarily see, touch, or feel are causing us a lot of problems. And knowing how to protect your data and where your data resides are things everybody in an organization should know. Consult your cybersecurity practitioner about how to implement organization wide AI tools to be very, very clear on where the data is getting pulled for these tools and whether that's inside or outside of your organization. Obviously, tools like multi factor authentication and role based access are all very important. It's no longer a good idea to just have a server running randomly in a closet somewhere that somebody manages to keep your employees on and off from an email perspective. There's too much at stake and there's too much risk. The other thing we need to do better at as organizations is only collecting and using data that's necessary for an AI tool to function. We need to avoid unnecessary personal or sensitive information. And I know as a marketer, this is something we are very, very concerned about, even when we post a form on a website. How much information are we asking somebody to give up before we've gotten to know them? Most of the time, we try to start with an email address and go from there. But when you're collecting information once a customer signs on, you need to be very careful about what you're collecting. You should be conducting regular security audits and doing continuous monitoring as to who can access data in your organization, and train your employees on data security best practices. Oftentimes, I remember getting directives from the IT department that didn't really sink in with me when I was a full time employee. And now I understand why they used to get so uptight about laptops that got taken home or information that was being accessed from outside an organization. These have been tough challenges for the IT people to keep track of in organizations. And AI is just making it more complicated and producing outcomes at scale, which can be a positive. It can also be a negative. Let's talk about the data and algorithm bias. This one is near and dear to my heart because I've questioned for a long time as I've been talking about the AI topic over the last 10 years as part of the women in tech work that we do. If the information isn't representative of everyone when it gets pulled into the data lake, and we then start asking to retrieve information or modeling things based on that data when it isn't representative, what does that mean then for the types of things we're going to build going forward? AI data and algorithms are supposed to be modeled on the real world. But the fact of the matter is, there is systematic biases and prejudices in the real world. And now they're getting reproduced when you add AI to the equation. This is a great podcast from Brené Brown. You can snap the QR code and listen to her conversation with Dr. S. Craig Watkins from the University of Austin, Texas, where they attempted to build an unbiased or blind AI system. They wanted it to be race and gender neutral and assumed that they could do so, but quickly found out they couldn't because not everybody starts from the same place. So inherently, there's always going to be bias. Here's an example of something that happened to us at Marketing Copilot. We were supporting an organization that was a nonprofit and it was searching for volunteers, specifically female volunteers, to mentor young girls on the opportunities available to them in the tech sector. Women only make up 26% of the tech sector. And the team at Marketing Copilot and Women Talk Tech have been trying very hard for the last 10 years to raise the bar on getting more women into tech. So we supported this organization in their quest for volunteers. LinkedIn saw that post and immediately flagged us as being prejudiced because we said specifically it was young women being mentored by women. That was probably part of the inspiration for why women wanted to do it and why those young girls wanted to be mentored. But they took our post down saying that it didn't meet with their hiring standards. It was flagged as a discriminatory job posting when of course it was just volunteer positions. We immediately appealed the ruling by LinkedIn, and within 30 seconds, we got a response back from their AI algorithm saying that we'd been overruled. It had to be removed, the post. Our account was flagged, and we did not have any exposure to helping promote this really great organization for women. This is where I think the algorithms and the machines get it wrong. They don't understand what human beings are doing, and they don't understand how we are executing things. They just look for certain things to be flagged and then they take it all down. This is not a very positive use of a biased algorithm. Dr. Craig Watkins says that we have a responsibility to build with rather than build for people. And having been somebody who's been in the tech sector for 30 years and a marketer and salesperson, I can definitely attest to the number of times I've gone into a company where technologists have built a product because they think it's a great product with great features and functions. But when we throw it over the fence, as I like to say, to see who wants to buy it, we don't necessarily get all the uptake that we would like because it was built for a specific subset of people. What if we actually built technology with people rather than for people? I think that from this perspective, very different things start to take shape. So get more diversity at the table as you're talking about the products and services you might want to build with AI. Social scientists and humanists are just as important as developers and technologists in the AI conversation. Provide easy access to reporting systems when AI gets it wrong. How are you going to flag AI if it's not correct and if bias exists? You need to be able to adjust and correct accordingly. Dig in to figure out how AI systems are using your work or your data or your information and educate yourself on how and where existing biases might be present in that algorithm. Advocate for accountability and transparency from AI providers within your organization or people who are championing AI. And critically assess AI outputs and decisions so that you can immediately identify signs of bias and take corrective action. This last one, brand ethics, of course, as a marketer, I am very, very bullish about. I think everybody who has a brand today should be thinking very clearly about how they use AI and how they serve their customers. What we've seen over the last 18 months in the business to business marketing environment is that there is a huge downfall of meaningful content on LinkedIn. People post snippets, they post information that isn't helpful or useful to the customer base, and they're generating this with AI. I think this hurts your brand if it's not meaningful content. We've seen a rise in completely automated sales sequences and processes, and people reaching out in an automated way on LinkedIn, which is quite frankly annoying or and not at all useful, and also annoying in email. And we've seen email and text messages and inboxes filled with spam. As a consumer, we get very frustrated with these tactics. So think carefully about why you would want to use them to sell your products and services. When you're selling complex products or services, as we do when we sell technology, trust has to be built. Without trust, I don't think you can actually close a sale. But trust means human to human connection. And while it's hard work, it's really the only thing that does work. The very first thing we tell companies if they want to really represent their brand well and have strong brand ethics around their brand is to have clear documentation of your buyer personas. That's not just an industry category or who you hope will buy from you. Really dig into what those customers care about so that you can augment that with AI, but not use AI to do your homework. You need to make personal connections with current and prospective buyers. You can't automate meaningful interactions. There might be some work you can do to automate part of your process so that things don't slip between the cracks, but those meaningful connections have to be made person to person. Find partners who you can co market with, maybe a webinar, video, or campaign, so you can get to know their audiences and they can get to know yours. And this is really important for brand ethics. This is how we get people to trust us. Identify the top 3 events you can attend to raise your profile and really put effort into how you engage with that community. And remember that people want to buy from people, not companies. And the number one place they go to learn about somebody is on LinkedIn. Make sure that you're providing meaningful connection and you've got really good content that you're generating as part of your LinkedIn strategy. So let's recap for a second. The four pillars of responsible AI that we think every organization should be digging into right now before they even deploy AI: intellectual property, data security, data and algorithm bias, and brand ethics. Don't forget to download our Responsible AI guide. It's got all these tips and more that I've just walked through with you today. And let's jump back to 1999 for a moment. If somebody came to you and said, there's this new tool called email, what would you tell your boss about it? What would your reaction be to how it's getting used in the organization, what policies you're putting around it, how it's going to be rolled out to employees, what kind of training is going to get done? We need to fast forward to today and do the exact same thing for AI. We need to be responsible about how we engage our employees, our customers, and our community around content and information that's true, valid, and has been vetted. I think we can do things differently this time around because if we aren't thinking about responsible AI, we aren't serving humanity. I don't know about you, but that's a problem. Thank you so much for being here today for this webinar. My name's Marie Wiese, and you can reach me, marie@marketingcopilot.com. As always, I welcome your questions, your comments, and your concerns. I want to hear from our community on what you're doing to support and roll out responsible AI for your organization. Thanks for listening.